Something that I had learned from a younger age that I think was incorrect about God was probably the definition of meekness, and people using that more synonymously to weakness. And I think that was, again, incorrect. I think that what I started to learn was more so that meekness was more similar to strength. Someone who doesn't carry a sword is not so much the correct description, but it's closer to the man who carries the sword and knows how to use it, but is benevolent and magnanimous in how he chooses to live his life with that sword. I think a lot that I started to learn about the Bible and God was closer to that, and I wanted to pursue that more fully. I am Clayton Freed. I grew up in a small mountain town in Colorado called Crested Butte, and really my journey probably started there in the mountains. I love nature. I always biked, skied, played hockey, and a lot of what I came to know as God was just being in nature out there. My small mountain town church that I went to called OB Joyful was pretty pivotal in the beginning of my journey. That's probably where I started, and then I pursued that through college up to now, and now I'm going to Two Cities Church while I'm here in Georgia.
And as you have followed Jesus, what has been an area or what was an area of your life where you felt like he was calling you into greater intimacy or obedience or lordship over your life?
Yeah, so I think that kind of started when I was leaving high school, and I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Um, there's a lot of pressure on me to probably go to college and really get a job that way. And so that was the main focus, which I had some interest in with mechanical engineering. But a bigger side of me wanted to potentially enlist, and I was having a hard decision there trying to decide between the two of them. And then I stumbled across the ROTC program, which was at the time a good option for me to be able to do both. And whatever I decided I would try and pursue or look into in terms of a career or where I wanted to go with my life, it always kept circling back to the military. So for me, that ended up being the thing I realized that I was called into doing, and it was what I should pursue. And that's uh, kind of been proven through college up till now, even, and it continues to, that I know I'm in the right place.
And so that call into greater relationship with Jesus was very much intertwined with a pursuit of military service.
Yes, I think that the military, it seemed to be more and more so proven to me that um, that was where God needed me to go. And I think that there's a lot of things in the military and in the army specifically that kind of called me into trying to reflect God better in my life.
What were some of those areas that you felt like you wanted to reflect him a little bit better in your life?
I think that something that I had learned from a younger age that I think was incorrect about God was probably the definition of meekness, and people using that more synonymously to weakness. And I think that was, again, incorrect. I think that what I started to learn was more so that meekness was more similar to strength. Someone who doesn't carry a sword is not so much the correct description, but it's closer to the man who carries the sword and knows how to use it, but is benevolent and magnanimous in how he chooses to live his life with that sword. I think a lot that I started to learn about the Bible and God was closer to that, and I wanted to pursue that more fully.
When did you first realize that Jesus was asking you or calling you into this maybe shift in your life?
Yeah, so I was definitely on a verge of a hard decision there, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, um, and whether or not I should join the military, because there's no military service previously in my family. I'm the first one really doing this, and so it was very foreign to me. I think that a big thing that kind of pushed me over into that decision was I did a couple different mission trips while I was in college, and one of them ended up being to a uh, poorer area in Costa Rica. And I remember at the end of it, the woman who was there from my hometown that was kind of leading us down there ended up washing our feet as part of some of our own spiritual growth. And she gave a prayer over me, which ended up being um, blessing my feet for the road that I'll travel and the weight that I'll carry. And I think the way that she spoke about that, she doesn't, at that time, she didn't know anything about my thoughts on the military and whether or not I should do that. So it really felt like God talking to me, that that was where I should go. And it kind of solidified that for me.
What challenges or struggles have you run into as you've walked through this experience and he's guided you through this process?
I think some of the biggest struggles are, again, coming back to some of the things that I learned about God from a younger age before I pursued Him more fully. And a lot of that came down to when you're doing difficult things that if you're a Christian, maybe it's just suddenly some weight that's lifted off your shoulders and you'll just feel better. But that's not so much the case. And I think that I've started to learn more and more that um, it's not so much that God will remove the weight, but He'll teach you better how to carry it. And so I think there were a lot of struggles I had and continue to face, where I do difficult things, but I'm learning more and more every time of mentally how to fortify myself through God.
Would you say that you feel like he's called you into partnership with him in something and is walking with you in that partnership through some challenge and struggle rather than either calling you to something and then not walking with you or doing it all for you where you don't have to do anything? Does that question make sense?
That does make sense. Yeah. So I feel like I definitely feel as though I am walking with God in this path. And I think something that I've really focused on trying to do better is talk to God, whether I'm in a good part of my life or a more difficult part of my life, really just talking to Him out loud and including Him in what I'm doing. And I feel like that's drawn me closer to Him, where when I'm doing something that's easy, I feel He's there. When I'm doing something that's hard, I'll think and say, I'll be like, God, this sucks. um, and just like that open, it feels more like an open dialogue that way. And I feel like when I'm doing that, like it makes it better. Like that is part of the thing that helps fortify my mind.
This idea of being known and knowing him, where has that shown up in this invitation into partnership and this um, invitation into deeper relationship with him? Where has that shown up in your life?
Yeah, so I think that um, a lot of me trying to pursue this path that I feel called to, um, I feel like it's really easy to get down on yourself sometimes and to uh, really sometimes even go back to questioning, like, God, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? I think that around every turn, before I reach the full turn, I always think about that. Like, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? But then I make that turn and I'm right back into something that I have found a passion in. So I think that's part of that, God really knowing me feeling seen, of reassurance, like reaching that corner and thinking, man, no, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I think knowing God has drawn me closer to recognizing that, of course, He knows what He's talking about. And I'm never going to be lost, and there's never going to be something that breaks me because He's always there as that safety net.
What has happened as you've walked in obedience to this call? What did you find out about yourself, and maybe more importantly, what did God reveal about Himself through this process?
I think that what I've really come to know about myself through this process is um, there's a lot that I can do that I never thought I could. And I think that a lot of it was something that I might not have pursued without God. This military side of things, I really had no idea about how any of this works. And I mean, with no one else in my family having done it, I didn't have anyone to talk to. So it was very much a foreign place to me. And I think that doing this and pursuing this path, I found that I'm actually uh, more capable than I thought I was.
Did saying yes to this journey or this invitation cost you anything?
I think, in the broad sense, no, but I do think that there were parts of my life that were more comfortable, and I think that I sacrificed a lot of those parts that were comfortable um, for something a lot more difficult. But I think that regardless of the increased difficulties in my life, um, I think that the reward has been much further, or the reward has been. Um, I'm spacing on my words here, but the reward is the reward outweighs any of the difficulties that I've come to face here.
What have you learned through this process?
I think that I've learned to trust God more. I mean, I honestly feel like at the beginning of my path, I was asking more questions, being like, really, or why, or that sounds tough, or that sounds unknown. I feel like that doesn't sound right, but I feel like the more and more that I do this, uh, the more things that pop up in my life that are just like, hey, you need to go do this, or hey, this is what's happening. And instead of kind of tiptoeing around it, I've developed a better mindset of let's get started.
How is your life different after walking in obedience to this call or answering this call, and walking in obedience to King Jesus in this area?
I believe that I'm more confident, not just in myself or what I can do, but more confident in how God works through my life. And I feel like that confidence kind of spreads throughout everything that I do. And I feel like I'm able to not just do my own skills better, but I feel like more people want to talk to me about it, which has been awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. Last question as we wrap up. Who is Jesus to you?
To be quite honest, I feel like to me, Jesus is a warrior. I feel like to quote one of my favorite books, just the title, Jesus was an airborne ranger. I loved that book. And more and more people that I've come to know in my life have been able to teach me more about who Jesus was. And I think that one of the most incredible things uh, that I was ever told was really when you look at what Jesus did. Because again, going back to when I first started my path with Jesus as a kid, um, I think that some people described him incorrectly to me. And I thought that, again, going back to the meekness, Jesus wasn't weak, he was meek. And I feel like looking at his life in a whole, he was born into a time where, I mean, there's no running water, there's no plumbing, there's no easy food. He was a carpenter in a desert before power tools, and he walked miles every day, and it was difficult, but that was just the beginning. And then looking at all the things he did, from fasting in the desert, fighting off temptation, praying so hard because he knew of the pain that he was about to endure, praying so hard that he sweat blood, and then knowing exactly what he was going to go through to get to the cross, and he still did it. And since the beginning of his birth, he knew exactly what was going to unfold. And I think that is probably the best image of the strongest man that has ever and will ever live. And as a Christian, Christ like, that's definitely who I aspire to try to be more like.